So guys, welcome back to the podcast. So today we're going to be speaking to Sophie Dearden, and we're going to be talking about everything prior to JD training, the JD training experience, what she's achieved, where it's come from, and what life looks like now. So Sophie, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Sounds very official, that, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah, so as you can see, I'm still getting used to it. Welcome to the podcast. So tell me a little bit more about what was life like before JD training, and at what point you kind of came across me.
So, life before, I mean, that was a long life.
Well, okay then.
That was like 38 years. So
yeah, but tell me a little bit about, like, obviously you've lost an incredible amount of weight. Tell me a little bit about, like, the physique then.
So I suppose I really hit a heavy weight when I was pregnant with Elliot, my second son. And I guess it goes back before that. Throughout all of my teenage years, I was always really skinny. And in my 20s until I was about 25, I was really skinny. But it's because I was starving myself, massive yo-yo dieting. I was, sick sometimes if I overate. I was extreme on exercise, but it kept me in shape. But that is also what all of the magazines were focusing you on, like being a size 0.
I think we've spoken about this with a couple of other guests where there's definitely been a change in the media. There's definitely been a change towards calorie counting. There's definitely been a change in what I would say is like data-driven results, looking at the numbers, like how many calories do you burn a day, how many calories do you eat, how many calories do you consume. And I think, like you're saying back then, like I think a lot of people were going through that process.
Well, and now it's attractive to be strong and healthy. And if you look at everyone on Instagram, it's all about eating more calories, but also training and doing the right type of training. I thought you just didn't eat calories and you just, like, I trained a lot, but I was running all of the time. And I think back
let's stop there. Is this the second time on a podcast we're going to bash running? Because obviously, like, people think that I really dislike running, and it's not that I dislike running at all. It's definitely got its place. But what I definitely am very passionate about is teaching people how many calories they're burning on a daily basis, how many calories they can consume without gaining weight, rather than people relying on running every single day.
What did I say to you the other day? I've never been in the shape that I'm currently in. Like the shape in my legs, my abs, my arms, and that's after losing 10 stone of fat.
Yeah.
And I'm now in this incredible shape. When I was younger, I ran, and I was never in the shape that I'm in now. I just got injured.
So exactly. What led you up to then? So you said obviously your second son, and I think lots of people go through that. My partner's one of them who's been through it as well, and her transformation is well documented, and we've obviously just had our fourth. So tell me a little bit, like, why was that the trigger for gaining weight?
I gained a lot of weight with my first pregnancy, and then in my second pregnancy, I lost a bit of weight between George and Elliot. I gained a massive amount of weight additionally. And then in my later 20s, so in 2012, this was definitely a big turning point. I was attacked. The male that attacked me actually went to jail for 7 years in 2014. So it was a fairly serious case. But that just had such an impact on me and my weight. I gained a massive amount of weight after that, which I think is really common in those situations. Looking into it now, I know it's actually really quite common. Someone that is assaulted in that way will gain weight as a form of protection. I got married to Dan in 2016.
Check that out on Instagram, by the way. Unbelievable physique. Go on.
Yeah, check Dan out. So I got married to Dan in 2016. And I had crash dieted, so I was 15 stone 9 just before getting married to him. And I had crash dieted like crazy. So I was on Cambridge, which was 600 calories a day for 12 weeks. So serious, like, I'm pretty headstrong.
Come on, I think that's an understatement.
As you know.
Yeah, I think
so I was like, I cannot be overweight in my wedding photos. And it's really funny, my wedding dress story. I went into the bridal dress shop with my sister, who's tiny. She's a size 8. Always has been. Actually, she might be even a bit smaller than that. And I was still really overweight at this point. And I'd seen this dress in the window. I was like, that's the dress I need. So I tried it on. Didn't fit me, obviously. I was like a size 16 or 18 at the time. And I said to my sister, try this dress on. And the bridal shop people were like, no, she can't do that. And I was like, try this dress on. If it looks on you how I think it will look on me, I'll buy it. It's like $2,500 wedding dress. So my sister tried the dress on. She looked amazing. And I was like, we'll get that one. And they were like, in what size? I was like, in her size. And they were like, you can't do that because we can't make it bigger. We can only make it smaller. But literally was saying that. And I was like, I'll get into it. And I did. And I was a size 8 on my wedding day. Looked amazing. And then I got pregnant with George 8 months later. And then the weight just piled on, because now it makes sense. If I was like trying to make myself unattractive so I wasn't attacked again, being pregnant, I was at my most vulnerable. So and the way I gained the weight was I ate. I just ate and ate and ate and ate. I mean, like 3 portions of dinner, big bag of buttons, plate of cheese and crap, like overeating to the extreme.
But as we've spoke about before, and we speak about still regular, like people don't gain weight without eating. So, and what you're talking about there is obviously a trauma response. And as much as I very rarely talk about it, but obviously I've studied counselling level 2 and level 3. One of my jobs in the prison service was working with people that were in a heightened state, let's say, discussing suicide, discussing trauma. So it's not something that I'm adverse to doing, and I'm actually quite comfortable in doing. And I think that definitely helps me when coaching people, because I don't skim over really hard topics. But also I don't backtrack either, so that people have to deal with it and they have to be able to move on to it and then address it. But what you're talking about there is that trauma, and I think what a lot of people do is exactly that. And I talk to people all the time about trauma is a little bit like love. It's in the eye of the beholder. It's like what can be traumatic for me might not be traumatic for you, and vice versa. So like you're saying, it makes total sense in the mindset you were in, and you probably didn't recognise it at the time, just like a lot of people do not recognise the behaviour that are leading them to exactly where they are right now. But you recognise it now on reflection.
Yeah.
And I think that's a massive thing, and like you said, it just makes it so relatable and like why you were doing it. So that's the reason you kind of gain weight. Obviously, being at your most vulnerable, completely get that and completely resonate with it. Like, because obviously we've been through it. We've got 4 children under 6, and it's a lot of the time for me it was life changing. It was definitely life changing witnessing childbirth, and definitely changed my opinion and my worldview completely. And I had a lot of work to do, like around myself and other things. So I can definitely see how that would be massively heightened for a female. So at that point, you've had your little one, and
First one.
Where do you go from there then? So what happens then?
Yeah, so I think what you just said, definitely it's a life-changing experience. Also, you just move more. So I just was more active chasing him around.
Yeah.
So I did lose some weight, but I was still very much, at that point I decided, I want to lose a little bit of weight. But 2 things. One, I knew I was going to have a second baby, so I wasn't that bothered about getting into the shape of my life, because I was like, it's all going to go to shit again when I get pregnant.
I think that's quite, to be honest, and I think people watching, I think that's quite a common thing as well, especially with, let's say, with women that are headstrong. They know if they want another baby, and if you're going to have another one, like, you're kind of like, well, my body's got to go through this again, so I'll deal with it after. Yeah,
and I also knew I was going to gain all of this weight again. I didn't know why I was doing it at the time, but I knew there was something that was going to happen again when I got pregnant the second time. But I did move more. I thought, I want to lose a bit of weight, but I was back in that situation of having no idea how, so I did Slimming World for a little bit. I don't, I'm sure you'll talk about that in, experience with other people.
No,
you don't need to speak to me about it.
I try not, obviously, one of the things that I talk about all the time is I try to look at what we do rather than what others do. And I don't want to be that PT that goes online and gets loads of clicks and views from slagging off something else or somebody else. So I generally just say a diet club. I've tried not to even name it. And we've spoken on the other podcast with Gemma where I've said there's some good things. That gives you accountability. It gives you a community. So these are 2 things that we do as well, but it doesn't give you the education. And I think that's what a lot of people are missing. And if people get educated, they then have confidence in the decisions that they're making and realise that it doesn't come down to I can have this and I can't have that.
Yeah, but now I've worked with you, one thing I know is anything where you're on plan and off plan is going to be a problem. It's not lifestyle change, it's not sustainable long term, and it's not going to give you what you need. Like that, anything where you're on a diet and then your food is a reward, anything like that.
But it's something we've worked through, haven't we, and still do. And I say it all the time where if you start seeing it as on plan and off plan, you're not committing to this future version of yourself. And it's something we talk about all the time. and again, it's about committing to that future version of yourself. How do they behave? How do they act? How do they emotionally regulate and stuff like that? And I think if you don't start to see it as a lifestyle, then they will become triggers, trauma, emotions, stress, whatever you want to see it as, relationship problems, whatever you want to see it as. There's going to be triggers again that then you start using it as emotional regulation. And that's where kind of the problem comes from, and that's where we go through this yo-yo. So before we get into that, let's talk about you getting in touch, because it was quite a rare, the way you got in touch was quite rare.
Well, it was after having Elliot. So with Elliot, I went to 19.5 stone.
Yeah.
And there's a picture that I haven't shared on any social media yet that will get shared at some point.
Bang it on here. We'll bang it on here.
Yeah, we could do actually, of me at my baby shower just before having Elliot, and I'm entirely unrecognisable, I would say.
Well, speaking of unrecognisable, obviously we've spoke a little bit more about your transformation recently, and obviously you lost some weight prior to JD training as well, and that's something that we're very open and transparent about. But people literally look at the transformation and be like, that's not the same person.
Yeah, I mean, even I look at the transformation and I'm like, that's not the same person. So after having Elliot,
Yeah.
I knew that I wanted to lose weight. We were pretty much decided at that point. Dan's got 2 older children anyway, so there's 4 boys. We pretty much decided at that point we're done with having any more children. So I knew I wanted to lose weight, and I literally just started by walking. My dad said to me, it was New Year's Day 2022, and my dad said, in a really nice dad way, why don't you do a 1,000-mile walking challenge this year? Which I think was his way of saying to me, you need to lose some weight. And he said, come on, I'll do the first walk with you. So we did, and I nearly died on this
Shout
first
out to
walk.
Dad, though, because...
Massive shout out to Dad.
Massive shout out to Dad, because that is great advice for someone wanting to lose weight. Because I think what people don't realise, and obviously we talk about running quite a lot, and I don't talk about it that much, but my degree is actually in sports therapy, so it's injury management, etc. But what people don't realise is when you decide to go running, the impact that goes through your lower limb is like 8 times body weight. And if you're overweight and you're repeatedly doing that, and that amount of stress is repeatedly going through them joints that haven't had chance to adapt yet, you're going to get injured. So one of the things that we say to clients all the time when they want to do everything that they see on Instagram, they want to Olympic lift, they want to run, they want to do high rocks, they want to do all this really fun stuff, which definitely has got its place at the end, which is where you're coming towards now, or building a physique. But right at the beginning, you just need to move more.
Yeah, just walk. So I just started walking, and I got a watch, and I started to get really committed to going over 10,000. I think I started on like 8,000 steps a day, and then went to 9, then went to 10. So I definitely didn't start with like a really high goal on steps. And I just walked, and we would go on holiday, and I would still get up and go for a walk. Dan would have the boys. I'd take Elliot out in the buggy. I just committed. That was the one thing I committed to doing, which was walking.
Yeah.
And I did that for like a year. So that's when the weight started to come off, but there was still so much confusion for me around dieting, what to eat, how to eat. And I hired a nutritionalist, and that was good for some elements. But again, we started to lean a little bit into restricting. So we're trying to cut out food groups, which is, for me as a yo-yo dieter, probably the worst thing really that I could do. But again, from wanting to lose weight, I started to follow some accounts on Instagram, and I actually followed Gemma because she'd come up as a suggestion for me on Instagram. Her transformation was amazing. Then I went onto your profile, saw some other transformations that you had done, and I was walking back from walking the dog, and I was looking, and I don't know whose transformation it was, I can't remember, but something triggered me, and I just phoned you whilst I was walking. I found your number on the website, and I just phoned you, and I was like, I need to start working with you immediately now.
Let's
and
go.
You said, you know what you said to me? You were like, oh, okay, so the group program. And I was like, I'm not interested in the group program. And you were like, well, the one-on-one. And you said something about the cost. And I was like, at this point, I just need to work with you. How do I work with you?
And I think like that's what was so rare about it, is like when you say you was headstrong, and we'll talk about probably more about how you coach someone who's headstrong as well. But when you got in touch, it was literally like eventually when you phoned me, and I look back, I was like, I'd had an email, I'd had a message, and then I'd literally had this phone call, like out the blue. I'd answered it. I think I want to say we were waiting on a phone call. I think it might be to do with the house. I remember it was a mobile number, and thinking, oh, I'm gonna have to answering it, and then you just like bombarding, like, this is what I need to do. And I think going back to that, one of the things that we essentially do is we use the group program to assess whether someone is coachable, really, I suppose, and how much people want to make a change. You are one of the rare people that has come straight into one-to-one, obviously got incredible results, but you literally just came in like, I want to work, I've seen the results, I want to work with you one-to-one, and I want to do it now. And normally what we do is we go through a bit of a process where we find out whether I'm a good fit for you, you're a good fit for me, where you've been before, where we need to go and stuff like that. So you'd got in touch. I remember we'd moved house, we'd moved into temporary accommodation before this sale went through. And I had to take I think we did it at Costa. I think it was Costa in Ulverston where I did the call. And even the call was like, right, okay, when do we start? It was like, you're not listening here. And I should have realised then how headstrong he was. And then obviously we got started. And I know there'll be a lot of people out there being like, what is wrong with you? Why were you just not taking the sale? But at the time, like, I spoke with Jam and JD Training was blowing up. Like the amount of people that I'd get messages off and still do, and I wanted to make sure it was a good fit for everybody. One of the things that I've never been a fan of is upselling people for the sake of upselling them. So
I do feel like that's the only call out of all the calls we've ever had where I actually took the lead on it.
It bullied me.
Every call since then, you've taken the lead on that one. It is
exactly what happened. I just remember trying to talk you through like what one-to-one is, and you were just like, I'm not interested. I just want to buy it. Let's go kind of thing. And then we get started. So then we get started, and I just remember you just constantly wanting to lower your calories. And again, this talking about coaching people that are headstrong, it's as a coach, you have to be able to, one, stick to your values, and two, stick to the game plan, what I would say, because otherwise what you do is you get railroaded into a client taking you down the same route that they've already been down. And they're not doing it out of badness. They're doing it because
what they know.
It's what they know, and it's how they've got results in the past. And I remember speaking to you, can you remember your first calorie target? We stayed on it for quite a long time.
Was it 14?
No, so your first one was around 16.
That's the one that I kept though, wasn't it?
Yeah, so, and then we stayed at 16, 17, then we dropped it back down, and then we moved up. And I remember giving you your first calorie target, and you were like, no. I was like, what do you mean, no?
It sounds so high.
You was like, that's so high. Then it was then that I had to bring you into the data and show you, like, no, this is how many calories you're burning, because your step count is enormous every single day. So I was like, this is how many calories you're burning. This is the reason you can't stick to it. Because you used to always say, like, I'd struggle come a weekend. I'm like, I would struggle in a weekend if I ate that amount of calories through the week. So let's get you on this. And I'm sure, I don't know how it felt for you, but I'm sure at the time you were probably thinking, like, this guy don't know what he's on about.
Yeah, it was terrifying because I was so desperate to lose the weight, and I got to a point where the movement had carried me so far, but that had still, and yeah, I felt better, but I was still like, for me, I wanted to be size 8, 10, like whatever, 9.5 stone, because I knew that from when I'd been slim, like I wasn't overweight as a child, I was slim, and when I was teen in my 20s, and I knew that's how I felt and looked at my best. So I knew that I wanted to get there, and I got to the point where just doing the movement wasn't going to get me there.
Yeah.
So then my default was I need to be on really low calories.
Yeah.
And then you're telling me, no, you need to be on 1,600 calories, which is against everything, like Atkins diet, cabbage. My mum used to do Rosemary Connolly diet. I mean, that's a whole nother thing, right? You watch, my mum's amazing. She's my best friend. Everything she tells me to do, I do. But I've grown up watching her do this Weight Watchers, doing all of these different diets. So I suppose my default of losing weight was to do one of these more extreme diets and plans. So
100%.
I couldn't understand how you could possibly eat 1,600 calories a day and lose weight.
Yeah, and that's where literally being data driven is so key. So when you're dealing with a client and showing them, you have to physically show them. So this is where, as people know, I'm not like a massive advocate of watches and stuff like that, and people getting hung up on them numbers. But that is one of the benefits of having the watch, because you say, right, you're doing this many steps, this is how many calories you're burning, this is how many calories you burn as your BMR. We don't need to do extreme amounts of cardio because you're already in a deficit. We just need you to eat here. And I think you'll agree, I was just pulling you back all the time. You were always like, well, by this time I want to be this, by this time I want to be that, by this time I want to be... And I'm like, look, just do this week. And you are very much still like that. Just do this week. And it was literally holding you back all the time that allowed you then to realise, like, hang on a minute, I don't need to be in extreme diets, because your steps were so high as well. Like, don't get me wrong, there is times where your calories do have to come a lot lower if your activity is not there, but your activity was through the roof. So let's talk about the gym, because obviously now and anyone that's seen you on my Instagram, obviously you are pretty much loving the gym. Can't imagine life without the gym. Obviously Dan trains as well, so it's great from a relationship standpoint as well that you both like understand each other's hobby. Your question was to me all the time was,
what's the point?
What's the point? Why do I have to go to a gym? And I think that tells you a lot of probably where you were at the time, where you were just like, it's just about a number on the scales. It's just about weight loss. It's just about a number on the scales. And I want to go extreme calories. You had no idea about a physique and what you wanted to look like, how you wanted to feel with regards to confidence. And it took a while, didn't it, for me to get you into the gym and be consistent, because it was like, you need to go, we need to hold on to as much muscle as possible. And you were like, yeah, but the scales come down quicker if I don't go to the gym. And I'm like, yeah, but that's water and carbohydrates.
I think it was a pretty savage conversation, actually. I think you were pretty savage. And since we're not swearing on this, let's not go into exactly what you said, but there was quite a bit of that in it. And this, for me, has been one of the massive benefits of one-on-one. The fact that you can be... So you'll talk to me and you'll say these things to me. And then the next day or a couple of days, and at the time, you might annoy me when you say some of the things that you say, or I might be like, you have literally no idea what you're talking about, or other things that I might think and then relay to Dan afterwards.
Yeah.
And then it'll hit me, like it'll just come up a couple of days later and I'm like, oh my God. And I don't know, you're able to get light bulb moments out of me where I've been doing something one way for so long, and because I'm headstrong, thinking about something one way. And it's the wrong way, but I'm still convinced it's the right way. And then and what did you say to me? You said something along the lines. So as you know, I run my own business as well. And you always relate everything back to me running my own business, which helps a lot.
Yeah.
And I said something, didn't I, about like, this wasn't even a gym conversation. One, I never understood why I needed to be in the gym. And I'd like play with it. I'd go like twice a week and then I'd leave it a couple of weeks and then I'd go. But the scales were coming down, so I wasn't that bothered. But what really triggered me in the gym was I said to you, I want to leave a legacy. I want to build a legacy, as in the business, and I want to be great and all of that. And you were essentially like, you can't even get yourself into the gym. Like 4 times. You said it worse than that, what you said to me. Like 4 times a week, and you're saying that you want to do all of these things and you want to be great and you want to leave a legacy, but you haven't got the discipline essentially to get into the gym for. And I was like, and then you went into future, does your future self, do you want to be the type of person that won't go into the gym or whatever? And I was really annoyed when you said that to me. And the day after I was like, no, I do not want to be that type of person. And going to the gym for me, the physical impact of going to the gym has been great. And now I'm seeing it. It is exciting. I've only actually been consistent since April. And what are we now? What month is it? October. So I haven't been consistent for that long. So one thing I will say, once you're consistent in the gym, the results can come really quick if it's alongside fat loss and all of the other bits. And you know, you're doing what you've been told to do. But for me, it's the mental impact and the type of person I am that says, I get up at 5:30, I go to the gym, I make that time for myself. The results are amazing, but it's what it's done to my mind and my mindset. That's what I'm hooked on.
Yeah, and going back to that, one of the things that I did when I decided to go start my own business, which, as you well know, you are a business owner. I am definitely not. I am blagging it at every step.
We all are blagging it at every step.
I never intended to start the business that it is now. I was never, and even now I'm not that business orientated. I'm more about impact. I'm more about getting a result. And I still get more excited for dropping a client transformation than I do for a financial goal, let's say. But one of the things that I remember having the conversation with my dad was, I literally said, I'm never going to become a yes man. I'm never going to be held ransom by how much somebody pays me. So when you're having difficult conversations, what you have to be aware is you are going to trigger people. And I think I say this to all my clients, is if I trigger you, I'm triggering you with love. And also...
I don't remember you saying that to me, but thank you.
You're welcome. And also, I couldn't get a word in, that's why. And also, the big thing about that is getting to know the individual. And this is one of the things with regards one-to-one when you're coaching. People think it's calories and it's a weights training program or whatever, but you get to know the individual and you have to know their tolerance with regards how coachable they are and how much they can be triggered. And like you just said, I relay everything back to business because you are very business driven. So for me to get the message across, it has to be delivered in a way that's going to resonate with you. And that's what I want from these podcasts, is it to resonate with somebody else. But the future self stuff is absolutely massive, and it's something I've probably used with you more than anybody else. But we spoke with Gemma about it before, is like, that's exactly what I do with people, is essentially we talk about the person that you want to become, whether that be in business, whether that be physique, how you want to feel, your partner, as a mum, whatever. And we've discussed all of the in-betweens. But then I reverse engineer that. And if we do reverse engineer that and them conversations do come up, it is like, if you want to do something massive and you can't do this, this, this and this, then what kind of person is that going to be?
Yeah.
And also, if you want to stand, Gemma spoke about it before, but if you want to sit in a room or stand in a room and deliver a message, what do you want them people to think of you? And I think discipline is something that you definitely wanted. You just didn't see the point of the gym.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing.
And I think the consistency that it's brought, the impact that has had on my business. And I mean, Gemma and I briefly spoke about this morning when we were talking about, you know, like, how has JD really impacted
Go
you?
on, say it to camera. I'm getting a buzz off this.
Sorry,
you have never been so nice to me.
I know, because you're paying us for listening. We were talking about, you know, how has JD really impacted you? Because as you know, I've driven a 3-hour drive, lots of time to stop and think. And I was like, it's not just about going to the gym and getting in shape and all of that, and even the mentality stuff. It's the habits that have been created and the consistency in the habits that have been created that are now in the business as well. And before I'd be, because I'm impatient and I want results quickly, I'd be like,
Never
with
got
the
that
business.
message.
And now I'm like, actually just be consistent, keep banging the drum, keep following the bouncing ball, and the results will come, because if it happens in this area of your life, it will happen in that area of your life, and so forth. And the other thing as well, this is a really cool side effect, is George cannot wait till he can go to the gym with mum and dad.
It's massive. And I say this all the time, and I said it on the last one, and hopefully it comes up in every single one so people get that message. Obviously, I am massively biased. Like, fitness has literally saved my life on many occasions. But I say it all the time, that getting in the best shape of your life, physically and mentally, is a gateway to being happy in life. Because what it shows you is, like, you kind of just become empowered, because you're like, oh my God, like, I physically, look how much I've transformed myself. Mentally, look how much I've transformed myself. I am capable of so much more. And them habits, for me, habit coaching for me, I read James Clear's book, which is Atomic Habits, for anyone that hasn't read it. And I was literally, it was like reading back my life. And as you well know, I'm not a good reader. I stick the podcast on and I listen, but I'm not a good reader. It's like the cat in the hat story, like, try to read. But like, it literally, it's one book that stuck with me my whole life. And I use it, and the future self stuff I use all the time. And I say to people, every action you take is a vote for the person that you want to become. And regardless of whether you are doing that consciously or unconsciously, you are still making a decision. If you make a decision to not get out of bed, not do your steps, not go to the gym, you think that, oh, I haven't made a decision that supports my future self. No, you have. But you've made it's a future self that you don't want to be.
Yeah.
And I think that future self stuff for you at that point right there was absolutely groundbreaking, because I think you then started to go, well, actually, yeah, like, who would I take seriously? What traits have they got? Who do I look up to? What traits have they got?
Everything, even in, like, back to the kids, for example, I am the mom that I don't know if other people look at and think, oh, I admire what she's doing, or she's really annoying, because I'm like on the slides with the kids, like on the monkey bars, like running around, playing tag, not getting tired at all. And I remember getting on a plane when Elliot was like, so he was born in the August, so he would have been 14 months at this point. So I'd lost some weight. I'm feeling like, oh my God, this seat's quite small, and then having to put him on my lap as well, you know, like the baby goes on your lap. Jesus Christ, I don't know if there's enough space for him on here as well. And just being really, really uncomfortable. And now I'm the mom that is running around, turning up to on the school run, always dressed in gym kit or a nice outfit, being able to dress well and nicely, like the way I would think the way I would want to be able to dress but never could, instead of just hiding away in clothes. Now, I did a post about it this morning, like being able to choose clothes because they look really nice and make me feel amazing, not just to hide in them. Like my choices have opened up so much more. Yeah, and it comes down to, that's what you wanted. And this is what I say to people all the time, is you've got to commit to what you want and the person that you want to become. And again, I say it all the time, but you're literally your future self. You have to commit to that, because once you commit to that, you can then essentially reverse engineer it. And then with regards to the habits and making choices and voting for that future self, kids are exactly the same. People don't realise that, and I say it all the time, like, and I said it in the questions, is like, my thing is to be the example to my kids, to my partner, to my clients, to everyone I come across. But you are being that anyway.
Whether you're setting a good example, whether you're setting a bad example, whether you're not looking after yourself, you are looking after yourself, whether you're dieting, you're not dieting, your kids are soaking out, they are sponges.
Everyone around you is.
Yeah. And
impacts your friends, your family. My sister's about to join the gym.
yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's wild.
Yeah, and exactly, and that's exactly what it's about. It's about that ripple effect, and we spoke with Gemma before about then Andrew getting in great shape and the impact it can have there, and obviously, like I said, I'm biased. I genuinely think if everybody committed to what they want to become, and not everybody wants to be a size 8, not everybody wants to be a size 10, but if you commit to what you genuinely want and you get there, it's empowering, and you can then literally use that as a gateway to go into other areas.
It's just working to being the best version of yourself. And the other thing, and this has kind of just come to me now, obviously I wasn't too sure whether or not I wanted to talk about why I'd really gained all of that weight in the first place, and came around and decided to. But a big thing had been like a fear of looking attractive, because I'd associated looking attractive with being attacked. And somewhere along the line, I've literally just realised this, having this conversation with you now, that's gone. Like, that fear is gone. Otherwise, I wouldn't be putting the effort into how I look and how I dress and wanting to look attractive. So somewhere there's some resilience that's been built now, and the fear has been completely overridden.
Yeah, and like we've just said, I know we spoke about it before off camera, but like we've just said is, when you have all that and people don't realise the stresses that you go through, we talk about business quite a lot as well, and again, similar to Gemma, like obviously, yes, you've gone through a transformation, but I've picked things up about talking to business about you as well, but like, for me, it's kind of that proving to yourself that you are who you say you are. So every single day, I go to gym every single day, and it's like, every single day I'm just getting up and I'm going, yeah, I'm going to prove to myself that this is the person I am. I'm this person that's disciplined. I'm this person that's capable of this. And that gives me confidence then to go into my business and then to have challenging conversations with clients where if not, and you're feeling a little bit insecure and you're not authentic and you're not doing your own stuff, that starts to then drift into the rest of your personality. And I think people see through that really quickly. So when you walk into a room now, you've got up, you've gone to the gym, and you've done everything before you've even gone through them doors. I think that it literally radiates. I wrote in, everyone, you know, I've got 2 little diaries, don't you? So, and I wrote in there, like, your frequency speaks louder than your words. Yeah. And that's why people are always like, oh, you want to get a little bit more articulate if you're going to own a business. I'm like, I don't care. Like, people know when I go into a room and I speak to people about fitness, they know really quickly, because of the frequency that I'm on, that I'm so passionate about it. I don't have to learn how to articulate myself that well, because I know that it comes through, and I think that's exactly the same.
Yeah.
So we got you into the gym.
You did.
We got you consistent. Let's talk about the next struggle. So you went away on holiday.
Yeah. So we got in the gym, and we said you were like 4 times a week for 8 weeks, and I was like, okay. And we got to the end of the 8 weeks, and I said to you, let's go 5. I'm hooked now.
But this is you all over, and this is for the people that are watching, and again, this is you all over, and this is what happens with clients: is you have to be on it. You have to be on it, and you have to, like, with some clients you have to push, and for some clients you have to pull back. With you, it has been a constantly pulling back. You go through stages of like being the most needy person on the planet to literally 4 weeks completely transformed your life because you go into the gym. And it's about knowing when people need to be pulled back, when they need to be supported. You know, you'll get random messages like on Monday, like, where's your picture in the gym? Do you know what I mean? And you're like, Joe, I go every week.
I was in the gym.
Yeah. So, but it's knowing the client and getting to know the client and communicating with them, knowing whether they need to be pushed or pulled back. And you have been a client that's constantly had to be pulled back. Stop going so low on your calories. Stop doing this. Stop doing that. Because you were constantly wanting to sprint.
And that was one of the hardest things with this next stage, because I went away in amazing shape, wore bikinis, unbelievable, all new clothes, felt incredible the whole time I was away, except for the times I didn't feel incredible, actually. Felt incredible for a lot of the time that I was away, but then also completely felt out of control.
And I think that going back to what you speak about, and when you're speaking about, I think one of the things that a lot of people find empowering from this, I think Gemma's the same. When you start calorie counting, you take control. And you find out that there's no such thing as a good or a bad food. There's nutrient dense, there's calorie dense. And if you can make them choices and you can fit it in, that is then empowering for you to go control. And I think when you went away on holiday, I was saying to you all the time, there's a time to push, there's a time to pull. Now is the time to pull back and enjoy it. You don't get in the best shape of your life not to celebrate. You don't get in the best shape of your life not to go out and eat and not to do this. So it's all about, at that point, again, pulling you back. Let's talk a little bit then, next stage. Gone away, feel really good. We come back and we decide that the next stage is getting in the best shape of your life with regards to the way you look. By that point, you've constantly been speaking about the scales, haven't we? And I'm saying to you all the time, it's not a number on the scales, it's how you look and how you feel. No one will know the number on the scales when you essentially go away or when you try clothes on, etc., etc. So let's talk about that transition, because I think it's a really interesting topic and I think people don't talk about it enough.
Yeah, but it's also really difficult because then you wanted me to drop down to 4 days in the gym,
Yeah.
which was completely insane.
Yeah.
And then you also wanted me to increase my calories
Yeah.
very, very slowly and drop my steps, which we negotiated, but I wasn't going to do.
There was no negotiating, you told me.
There was no way we were going to do that. But I think, again, that was a massive leap of faith.
Yeah.
As much as the first time had been, but I'd seen the results from the first time. And Dan, being married to Dan really helps.
Yeah, Dan does help.
He helps a lot, and he's always on your side over my side of things. And he's like, just shut up and listen. Just do what you're told to do.
It's because, again, going back to Dan, he's lived it, hasn't he? So he lives it, he understands it, he knows the process. And I think what happens with a lot of people, and again, hopefully this goes out and resonates with a lot of people, is people think that losing weight is the be all and end all. And then when they get
end goal.
Yeah, then when they get there, they celebrate, they stop tracking calories, they end up going back to their old habits and then they start it again. Whereas actually, it's probably the easiest phase. You can't essentially get it wrong. The next phase is difficult. And we spoke a lot about it, and I think this is where it comes down to psychology again, is a lot of the time that calorie deficit phase is extrinsic. So you're getting all this feedback. You look amazing. The scales are telling you you're good. You're getting this result. You're getting that result. Your clothes are fitting. Once we get to a certain stage, it's all about building that physique. One, it's slow. Two, you have to have that leap of faith and that trust, because you have to pull back, start training a little bit less, focus on progressive overload, and then you also have to think about fueling the body, and we have to do that slowly, the reverse dieting stage that we're speaking about now. But also it then becomes intrinsic, because you're not getting that response anymore. People are used to this new version of you. So everywhere you go, everyone isn't like, oh, you're amazing.
Yeah.
The scales are then not feeding back to you every week. You're not winning every week. So then it does really become about, what do you want? And that is, again, where the psychology of the future self comes in. Do you want to be the person that lost all that weight? Or do you want to be that person that's in the gym, lifting well, building muscle, and suddenly people turn around and like, oh, that's the gym girl? Because at that stage, you was the weight loss person, weren't you? That doesn't mean that you are consistent in the gym. It means you can lose weight. So it's about transitioning to that next phase. And I think we will both agree, first couple of months, constantly banging the drum with you. The next 5 months, probably one of the easiest clients ever. Like, check in, how's things going? Yeah, smashing it, doing this, weight's coming down. Right, cool, rinse and repeat. Kind of not disappeared, but we didn't have as much comms, and then we're in this phase and it's like more comms again. And it's just about you going into that next phase, which people don't generally do because they don't normally see it. They see that calorie deficit phase and they don't see it. So then when the eyes are open to reverse dieting and then going into maybe a calorie surplus to build muscle, which obviously freaks a lot of people out, and that's why we reverse diet and we do it slowly. But it's about making sure people are educated around it, and we change the focus on the metrics. So we don't focus on so much calories, steps, and weight loss and scales. We focus on progressive overload.
But this is where the data's been amazing again, because you had to show me 2 weeks ago, only 2 weeks ago, and we've been in this phase for 6 weeks now, right? You showed me how many calories I was burning a day. And you were like, we could literally go to 2,500 calories and you would maintain. And I was like, wow. So like actually being able to look at the data changes the narrative that I had. I mean, even if you think about it, it says women need 2,000 calories a day. That's just like the guidelines. So even that's in your head.
Yeah, of course.
So then the thought of, okay, well, I can get up to 2,500. Now, the fact I'm on 1,700, for example, feels like there's still a really
massive
long way to go. It doesn't feel like that's actually that many calories.
Yeah, and there's that twofold, isn't there? One of the reasons your calories could go so high, just so viewers don't go away and go, right, I'm going to put my calories up and get massive and get strong, is because of your step count. Your step count is massive. It's generally between 16 and 28,000 every day in it. So obviously the more movement, the more activity that you're doing, the more calories that you're burning. So we call that obviously NEAT. That's what it's called. Essentially, people just call it steps nowadays. But so because you're moving so much, we need to fuel the body, because if not, and you're constantly not feeding the body enough, a couple of things will happen. One, you're not going to build muscle optimally. Yes, of course, we can still build muscle. You're very new to weight training still, even though you're in your first year, whatever. But we can still build muscle, but you won't build muscle optimally. You won't feel fueled for workout, so progressive overload is going to be difficult. But also as well, you will get into that mindset of feeling like you can't eat enough. You'll get into that mindset feel of restriction. You'll get into that mindset of every time you do overeat, let's say weekends, you feel like you've ruined everything, and then you feel like a failure, and that takes you back, and then suddenly it's not empowering, you're failing. And that's one of the things we've spoke about in it. We have to get the calories up, because if not, you're going to end up eating anyway, because nobody's going to sustain that calorie deficit for that amount of time.
And that's where the binging comes in.
Yeah.
And again, living with Dan, who's on 3,500 calories a day.
Dan's massive, to be fair.
Is he 3,000? Or maybe it's 3,800 now.
Yeah, it'll be more.
But living, it's good because I've literally seen he eats and it's hard to eat that many calories. And he does not binge. Like, he has no desire to binge. Now, I've also seen him in a calorie deficit, and his trainer's not going to like me saying this. So
smashing ice cream.
Hopefully his trainer's not watching this. And yeah, he does. He'll smash the sweets, the chocolate, the biscuits, because that's the result of being in a deficit. You binge. It doesn't matter if you're like in a Dan size deficit or in a me size deficit. And by upping the calories, I now understand it really reduces the risk. But even upping them 100, I said this to you like this week, even upping my calories by 100 a day, and I know that we're going to up them again soon, has significantly dropped my desire to overeat.
100%.
And I feel fuller all the time.
Because you can fuel the body. And at that point, you don't feel like you're missing out. And also, what we have to realise, and I say this to you all the time, fitness is the gateway to completely changing your life. But it is to make you empowered and confident to enjoy the rest of your life. There is a life outside of fitness, and you have to realise that. And that's one thing we talk about all the time is, where do we go from here? Because actually, now we're in the best shape of our life. By increasing the calories, it's going to give you more freedom, which means you can eat out more, which means that you can do some of the things that you want to do, so the other areas get better in your life as well.
And feel confident and good doing it. That's like, for me, my favourite part of going out, and you know I like going out, but my favourite part of going out is getting ready to go out.
Yeah.
And that's the truth.
Well, we spoke about it literally, and again, I think this would be good for some of the viewers to see. We spoke about it the other day, didn't we, where you literally said, like, I'm not even that bothered about the food and drink sometimes. I literally just like getting dressed up and going out.
Yeah.
Especially now you've got the confidence. And I think that's where people, they start to build this emotional tie with going out and like overeating. You don't have to overeat every time you go out. You don't have to drink every time you go out. But if you've got more calories, it does give you that freedom to do them things more.
And that's the other crazy thing. I used to be the person that would go out when I was really overweight, and I'd order like low calories and salad, and I'd be really conscious of other people seeing me. Now I'm the person, because I do like food. Like before I feel like I had a love-hate relationship with food. Now it's just a love-love relationship with food. So when we go out, I want 3 courses. I want a really good meal, and I don't care about the calories. I don't want to be thinking about that. I want to be thinking about, I'm ordering stuff that I really want to eat and I'm going to enjoy. Before, I would eat minimally and then feel so deprived when I got home.
You'd have something.
Everything. For like days.
But that's, again, it comes down to that resilience of your future self. The reason people do that is it generally comes through guilt or shame. They've got this vision of themselves, how other people see them. They want to live up to that, and they're not ready to deal with kind of the underlying stuff that's causing it, which is overeating. People who are overweight are overeating. Yeah,
very much so.
It's a science in it, but it's not as, yes, it's calories in, calories out. Yes, it is easy, but it's building a relationship where you support someone through that and get to the root cause. And that is the big thing about coaching, is you have to get to the root cause. Losing weight is easy. I've said it on a couple of podcasts. Sometimes people get a little bit of hate over it and like, oh, it's not. It is. It's a mathematical equation. You don't struggle with your profit and loss. Yeah, you can see it, it's there, it's black and white. Calories in, calories out is exactly the same. What is difficult is taking someone through that who's maybe got some guilt, maybe got some shame, maybe got some trauma, and supporting them enough so that they feel like they can open up and go on to achieve something, because then they can actually deal with it, rather than just focusing constantly on this low calorie recipe book and this low calorie this. They never get to the root cause. And I think that's where the biggest thing for you's been, and now I think the biggest thing is going to be how far you take it in the future. Because obviously, with regards to Dan and having that support and seeing someone else completely transform the physique, you've probably seen now that you're getting results very similar. You're like, wow, that's driving me to go eat more, train harder, and build more muscle, which is what I would say is the most exciting part of the journey.
Yeah, and it feels good, and it's like I'm no longer abusing myself. I'm no longer depriving myself. I'm out of that cycle. It just feels good to be able to eat well, train well. But you know, we talk about the training. Realistically, I don't know how many hours there are in a week. What's 24 times 7? Come on, numbers man.
You're asking the wrong person.
All right. However many hours there are in a week, realistically, it's such a tiny amount of time spent in the gym to have such a massive impact. And on the days I don't do the gym, I do a walk, as you know. So if you, let's say it's 90 minutes a day in total that I've been in the gym or moving, out of 24, an hour and a half out of 24, it's tiny.
Yeah, of course. And it literally is. I say it all the time, and it's where and you've heard me say it many a times, where your attention goes, your energy flows, and your results grow. If you start, and people don't like this terminology, and I will never back away from saying it because I fall into it as well. Like, it's not something I'm saying is external. I fall into it as well, but it's this victim mentality that is different for somebody else. Everybody's got life pressures. Like, I wake up sometimes and I'm like, I'm sick of being the example. Who's going to do something for me? I wake up some days and I'm like, how can that person not go to the gym? I've got 4 kids under 6, as if my stresses are bigger. They're not. But where you put that time and energy and where you put that attention and what you focus on is going to determine the results that you get. And I think that's what people don't recognise, is they put a lot of time and energy into being negative and focus on the things that they can't do. Even like people that are let's say, massively overweight and their body starts to give up on them after 2 sessions a week. You can still do 2 sessions a week and control your nutrition. You can still start walking like you
or
did
just
on your
go for a
journey,
walk.
or go for a walk. And people are like, oh no, I get too tired. It's like, well, you don't, because how do you get from A to B? You just don't want to physically stop your life and go out for a walk. You don't mind walking if it's for a meal. You don't mind walking if you're on holiday. You don't mind walking there. But if it's going out a specific exercise, and then you suddenly start to look at it and go, I can't do that, when you definitely can. So it's about focusing on what you can do, not what you can't do. But I think when people hear that terminology, they think that it's a terminology where I kind of, or other people, not including themselves, we all fall into it. But again, by showing up every day, following them habits, going to the gym, controlling your nutrition, getting your steps in, for me, that every single one of them actions is a vote for the person that you want to be that day and in the future. And once you start doing that, you start to realise your potential.
And then you end up being that person and living that life. And then it just, you do it without thinking about it.
Exactly. Right, guys, so just a massive thank you to Sophie. As Sophie said on the podcast, she's drove over 3 hours to be here to share her story, and it's absolutely incredible to hear about how JD training has impacted her life and impacted her results. And also, I'd like to say as well, with talking to Sophie, just like with Gemma as well, who runs her own business, it is a learning curve as well for me. So it's not a one-way relationship, and I think that's absolutely one of the big things that comes out about working with clients one-to-one, is you find out a lot about yourself and you learn a lot as well. Is there anything you want to say, Sophie?
Just thank you so much.
Aww,
I'm not going to get emotional with you. I'm not going to give you a hug. I know you're not a hugger.
I'm not a hugger.
But literally life-changing. I know that sounds so cringy, doesn't it? Oh, you've changed my life. But you've contributed to changing my life.
Well, I think that's a big thing as well. And I say this to people all the time. Like, I might have been the catalyst to change, but I think a lot of people, when they see your results, have done it as well, join off the back of seeing results, and they're like, if I join JD training one-to-one, I'll get results. And it's just not the case. The person has to do the work, and not only the physical work. A lot of the one-to-one coaching is about doing the work emotionally and literally sitting down, having them honest conversation with yourself, being open to change and realising, what do I need to change to become my future self, my best self? And I think that's something that you've done massively. It might have majorly triggered you when we first spoke about it, but you've been open to change and you've adapted with it. So I think that's massive credit to you.
Thank you.